Hi, and welcome to the SparcStart TA Leader Series, where we get to talk to some of the leading people in the industry about the things they're thinking about, the questions they're asking, the programs they're implementing, all the things that are new. Today, I'm thrilled to have Steve with us. Steve is a longtime friend and someone I always enjoy talking to. Steve, would you introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure thing. Well, thanks for the invitation to speak here. Recruiters always like to talk, right? So Steve Tiufekchiev, have been in the talent acquisition field for decades now at this point. We won't say how many. Most of that time has been spent on recruitment and specifically early talent recruitment, which is where I continue to have a passion for, but have played all sides of the talent desk, spent some time in the university side as well. Most recently worked with a company called Yellow, was one of the co-founders, junior co-founders to help build talent software for the early market. And now focusing, taking all those years of experience and helping others in talent acquisition with the experiences and things that I've learned along the way to help out. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Great. And given that you've got so much experience in campus and early careers, you've obviously been watching demographics for a long time and watching candidate behavior change as you go from one generation to the next. What do you see ahead for not just early career, but for anybody who's thinking about, strategically about their workforce planning, who they're bringing in? What do they need to be aware of? What are the things that are coming down the pike for them?
Yeah. Well, I think they should be very aware, almost be very afraid, as sometimes the expression goes, because the size of the demographic changes that we're going to start experiencing in really now 2025 are something that we haven't really seen, or at least from a generational perspective. And what I mean by that is it's referred to as the enrollment cliff, which has to do a lot with enrollment in higher education, or the demographic cliff. And what this means is that back in 2008, 2009, when the recession was going on, for many number of reasons, the birth rates were going down tremendously. And now, fast forward 18, 19 years into the future, you're starting to see the ramifications of that in terms of the number of eligible young people to come into the workforce, but more importantly, to come into the educational system. And I think what people have to understand is that number of bodies that are decreasing has been estimated to be somewhere around 13 to 15%, depending on what numbers you look at. So that's the number of people that are available to go into higher education. And this is why, by the way, universities have been incredibly focused on this for the last decade, because they've seen it coming. And the reality is you're looking at hundreds of schools, I believe over the period of the last 5 years, about 500 schools, for profit, nonprofit, private, have closed as a result of this. But now you're going to see that steep drop off hit starting in 2025. And the thing that I always try to remind people is the verbiage that uses available. But think about what else is going on. Young people are beginning to question the cost of education, return on an investment.
Yeah.
So one of the ramifications of that is where they go to school, which means that you might be used to seeing a certain number of graduates come out of a university, but that could change because they're beginning to change where they are going to school. They're also looking at the fact that the cost of an education is so high that maybe they postpone it, or perhaps they go a different route, a skills route, certification route, right? So these forces are combining to what I would think is more along the lines of a perfect storm, because even if you're not in education, that doesn't allow you to get off the hook here, because guess what? In 4 to 5 years, that's going to translate into the workforce. So you have this huge change that's come along, but think about also what was going on the last 20 years. We've seen a decline in the birth rates over the last 2 decades. So this has been a trend that everybody has sort of been looking at, but it's accelerated here in 2025. And now it's going to start having an impact first in education, then translating into early talent recruitment, and then overall into the workforce. So if you're in recruiting, hang on. But I think more importantly, it also means that from a candidate perspective, you'll have more choices, you'll have more opportunities, which means you'll have more leverage. And there again, we always come back to when candidates are in the driver's seat, it begins to drive all kinds of different behaviors in terms of what employers are going to have to do to both recruit, to attract, to retain. And again, I believe, if the numbers are correct, that we haven't really seen anything like this. In fact, I would argue that, so go ahead.
Right. And that comes doubled with what for a long time has been called the silver tsunami, where you've got all the baby boomers that are retiring off the back end. And
Yeah.
these two trends are hitting at the same time. Not that you're going to put a new college grad into a role that a baby boomer was in, but there's a trickle down effect. Everybody moves up one chair and you've got fewer people to replace those chairs. So you're really getting hit from both sides.
Yes.
And to the point that you've alluded to, it's not just about bodies, it's also skills. When we see all the technology that's coming into the workplace and the need to understand it and use it well, I, I understand why young people are looking at a college education and saying, do I really need to go, $300,000 into debt or $400,000 into debt to go to a private university? That's a legitimate question to ask. But the technology they need to be comfortable with to be high performing employees in most corporate organizations almost says yes, they do.
Yeah.
Just for the technical competence alone.
Yeah, I mean, think about ChatGPT. So I sort of chuckle because my son had an internship over the summer, and he was working with the company in project management capacity, and it happens to be a design firm that does commercial design, tear downs, and so forth. And one day he said, "Yeah, Dad, I had this problem. The architect put the outlets in the wrong places." I said, "How'd you fix it?" He said, "Well, I went to ChatGPT and I asked the ChatGPT to tell me where and how I needed to place my outlets, right? The spacing." And I thought I would have sat down and just gone in there and, brought out a calculator and sat down maybe 2 hours later, figured it out. And my point is that, one, generationally, he's aware of that. But two, using this kind of technology to accelerate the outcomes, to accelerate problem solving is just an expectation.
Yeah,
And the good news is the generation is comfortable with it. The bad news is they could become too dependent on it, too comfortable, where if it's not available or if there are other needs in play, they don't have those, what I would call the processing skills, the thinking skills, right? But absolutely, the technology, whether it's AI or more sophisticated software, is part of every individual role. And along with that comes the skill of understanding how software comes together, how the problem solving fits into that, the learning of that software. Because, oh, by the way, that solution will probably be replaced by another one in a couple of years. So you have to have the
right,
ability to learn a whole new skill set.
right. And we're hearing employers who are concerned about candidates who are using AI to help with the application process. And there's a whole range of issues there, everything from purely fraudulent candidates, which obviously
Mhm.
nobody wants. But I mean, I'm hearing some employers saying they don't allow candidates to use any AI at all. And I'm
Mhm.
thinking, do you really want to screen those people out? Do you really want to be hiring people that aren't technically competent and won't take advantage of the tools that are there?
Yeah,
At SparkStart, if you don't know how to use AI and don't use it appropriately, I'm not sure there's a role here for you because it does
yeah.
help productivity. Now, you need a critical thinking skill to say, all right, I asked ChatGPT that or Claude that or whatever. Is that reasonable? Do I need to check that number? Is that the right thing? But nonetheless, it still really accelerates a lot of what we're doing. There's no two ways about
No
it.
doubt about it. The productivity that these tools impart is arguably, again, something that we've never seen before. The fact that you can go in and say, I want to create I actually did this last week. I needed to create a job description for a role. And I said, create a job description for a fiber technician in telecommunications that is located in this area. And within 5 seconds, right, it created this very nice job description, which I could have done, but it would have taken me a lot longer. I think where the real challenge comes in to your point is at some level you need to ensure that the individual is both authentic, meaning that they are who they say they are, right? Because there are folks who are swapping in
Yep.
the AI for characters and whatnot. We've already seen some of those
Yep.
stories come through. And do they have the raw skills that you fundamentally are going to require? And for me, the raw skills are things like interpersonal thinking, problem solving, the things that are going to make the tools 10 times more effective. But once you've established that, then augment that with the ability to use the tools adds a whole new layer of productivity. But it's a balancing act, right? One side or other of the scale is going to get you into trouble. So somehow you have to bring those two together. I think that's
Right.
where the struggle is. It's come so fast And the fact that now, I mean, everybody was used to going into a cover letter and a resume and changing it, but the fact that you can now use the tech to completely change the tone in a way that's not authentic, which in the old days you would have had to pay someone to do, right? But you can do this and do it multiple times. At what point does it get so far from being an authentic version of you that you can't even speak to the resume contents because you didn't write it, you didn't think about it, you didn't create it, right? And so now it creates a whole new dilemma. I think it's
Right.
just part of that phase of getting used to it and the norm and figuring out for your organization, for your team, what works for you. Because it shouldn't be a cookie cutter approach where what works for you works for is imparted to everybody else. Because to your point, I could be very comfortable with folks who are comfortable with the tech. Over here, I need folks that are incredibly well suited for problem solving, and I have to demonstrate that because that's core to the position, right? And it really begs that question. People need to invest time in thinking about their recruiting process, thinking about their evaluation, and not just resort to the old way of doing things, checking the boxes and putting in place things that don't matter for them.
Right. Or saying technology bad, you can't use it. But
Yeah,
in fairness to recruiters and entire recruiting organizations, it's all changing so fast that it can seem
right.
overwhelming just trying to keep up with it. With lazy apply and AI apply and all the other apply bots, we're just trying to keep track of what's out there. What are the products? What are they doing? What are they offering candidates?
Yeah,
Just to stay on top of the market, we're trying to be conversant in this stuff.
yeah.
And it's hard to stay conversant. So, if you've got a rec load of, 20 recs on top of all of this, I have a lot of sympathy for people who are really struggling to keep
Yeah.
up and do their day job and have some kind of, perspective and be able to think long term. But there's so many variables that are changing right now.
Yeah. So I always, the way I personally look at it is I don't particularly feel bad for companies or what we call it the employer side of it because they've had arguably the advantage over the years with the technology. They've had the applicant tracking systems, which have created, all kinds of efficiencies. So for many years, employers had all of the advantages, candidates did not. And so now what we're seeing is the technology sort of leveling set that where the individual has an ability to apply to 1,000 jobs overnight, which is creating a whole new problem. But it does give them the ability to be more exposed because trying to work through a company's process that takes an hour or 45 minutes. I remember doing it was an interview for a cashier job just for a test to see, and it was at one of the big box home improvement stores. It was a 45-minute ordeal. And on top of
Yes.
that, after I did that, I got asked to do an assessment for a cashier job. And so, some of these things are so out of proportion to the roles and responsibilities because of poor design, poor thinking. It leaves the candidate saying, I need tools as well to allow me to create, opportunities. So there's both arguments on both sides. Where I think recruitment needs to be concerned is first of all thinking that AI is not going to change their jobs. I was on a call the other day, yesterday actually, and a bunch of folks were talking about it. And the question was, will AI take my job? And the answer was no, it will not. And I think the answer there should have been, it won't take your job, but it will fundamentally transform the job. And in many cases, it will fundamentally, I think, change the number of jobs so that you don't need as many, for example, in frontline recruiting. So what I mean by that is this whole new wave of AI that's agentic or agentic AI, which is about creating task-oriented, patching together capabilities to now do any number of what I would call the lower value aspects of recruitment that are task focused. It's able to do it as well, if not nearly, if not better than what I would call a 1 or 2 year old recruiter. So in that case, those roles will definitely shrink because the technology can take that on effectively. Now, it does leave room then to do more important things. So I think what we're seeing is recruiting needs to be paying attention because these changes are transformative. Years ago, technology was incremental. It made poor processes faster being uh, imperfect, right? It was expensive databases. Now you're looking at technology that is getting to the level of putting uh, 1 + 1 = 3 scenario into play. And that's why I think that it will be transformative And from recruitment, that's a good thing, because what we want is we want more time spent with individuals. So if you loop back to our first part of the argument, which was the job market will change to, once again, candidates are in control. You will now spend much more time trying to pry somebody away from their organization. You need that sophisticated skills to be able to, convince someone to leave. So you don't want someone spending time on requisitions and creating requisitions and job descriptions, right? Those are all things that don't add value. The value is in me talking to you and helping you understand how my organization can check all your boxes, and then staying in touch with you and convincing you. That's where you want the focus. The tech will allow that to happen, but in the process, it will also, I think, reduce the number of roles that are at that bottom level, but allow for more of those higher level skills.
Yeah, and change the skills that are required. So yeah, I agree with you. I think all of that's going to happen. I don't think recruiting is going to go away. I think it will fundamentally change. I think if you're a sourcer, you may see really dramatic changes there. But the personal piece, when someone changes a job, and it's different, right? If you're looking at hourly, high volume, where someone's going to come into a warehouse, it's not that big a decision to them whether they work at your warehouse or somebody else's warehouse. But if it's a managerial job, and someone's really got a career that matters a lot, then there's a whole different thing. So I think we're going to see a lot of stratification in what's expected of recruiters, and maybe and start calling them by different names, because I think
Yeah,
there are very different skills and things. But Steve, I could talk to you all afternoon, and there have been afternoons I haven't
it's
talked to you all
Friday. We
afternoon.
can't.
Right, which would be great. So we both got things to go, but
Yeah.
really appreciate this. Thank you. I think this is all really important stuff. I
Oh,
think
thank
people
you.
are thinking about it, but additional perspective is always valuable. So thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
thank
And
you.
have a great weekend.
You as well. Thank you.
Bye.